Well, good morning still to everyone. Good late morning, but good morning nonetheless. My name is Jerry Shockey, and I oversee all the youth and educational programs here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. We're pleased that you guys could all tune in for this program. The real idea and premise of this Heart of the Hall of Famer series is really to convey exactly what it took to get in the Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic ability. And I know many of you, or all of you, are studying those 6 pillars of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. And you'll see those pillars exemplified through this series and through Pro Football Hall of Famer Chris Hamburger. And the one thing that can be said about our Hall of Famers is that if their God-given ability didn't lie in pro football, they would have excelled in other life endeavors, and many of them, as Mr. Hamburger is an example of one, have gone on to excel at other things in life beyond just the gridiron. So you guys have the wonderful opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Hamburger today about what obstacles he faced, what advice he has for students, what character traits do you think are important, all those sorts of things. So we're really excited to be able to give you guys the opportunity to talk with one of the greatest football players ever. There have been 25,000 players that have played in the National Football League since it started here in Canton, Ohio in 1920. And out of that 25,000, there are only 273 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And out of those 273, only about 230 are actually players. So 230 players out of 25,000 players, Mr. Hamburger is one of those. So you're not even talking about a great player. You're talking about a Hall of Fame player that you guys are able to speak with today. So before we do that, and before we ask Mr. Hamburger for his opening remarks, there are a number of folks that we need to thank as we talk about the team sport of football. It takes a great team to put on something like this. And first and foremost, we have to thank our folks in Darlington County, South Carolina, at the school district there. Diane Sigmund and Chad Husley, thank you for all the arrangements and your administration, for all the arrangements you guys have made in hosting Mr. Hamburger at one of your schools. So we appreciate your help with that and all the testing and all the other things we've done over the past month and a half to make sure that this runs well today. We have to thank our friends at eTech Ohio and Columbus. Many of you have spoken with those folks. They're the ones that bridge this call and allow us to connect all these schools in all at the same time. So thank you to them, those folks, through our State Department of Education. We need to obviously thank the teachers that are involved with this program from all the school districts from across the country. Without your preparation and scheduling and all those things that have to take place to make this possible, it wouldn't have been possible. And then last but definitely not least, we need to thank the students there in all the classrooms, because you guys are really the driving force behind the program today with your questions. I've seen your questions, you submitted them, they look outstanding, so we're really excited to get diving into some of those questions. But before we do, we're going to have Mr. Hamburger with his opening remarks. But before we do that, what we'd like to do is give you guys the opportunity to show a little school spirit, and when I call upon your school, feel free to give a shout out. So not only the other schools can see and hear you, but also Mr. Hamburger can see and hear you as well. Go ahead. And I hear some background noise. I'm not sure if that's one of the schools or if that's that might be Darlington there. So just make sure that that microphone's pretty sensitive there. But let's go ahead and start with, Darlington, I guess we can go ahead and keep it going. At Darlington, if you want to give a shout out, Darlington, South Carolina, the students right there with Mr. Hamburger.
1, 2, 3.
Go Darlington!
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys connecting in with us, and you're surrounding Mr. Hamburger there. So we appreciate that with you guys. So let's go to California at Emmanuel High School in Reedley, California. Go ahead if you want to give a shout out for your school.
Go Eagles on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Go Eagles!
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. And we'll go ahead and ask you to mute your microphones there. And let's come not too far away from the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the Cleveland area, Pepper Pike. Let's go to Orange High School.
1, 2, 3.
We believe you can!
Okay, thank you, Orange. Thank you, Orange. Appreciate that. Go ahead and mute your microphones there, Orange, and let's go to Claremont, Wyoming, and our Vita Claremont. Go ahead and give a shout out.
Go Panthers! Go Panthers!
Okay, thank you very much, students there. And last but definitely not least, let's go to Elmira, New York, and Southside High School if you want to give a shout out.
1, 2, 3.
Go Express!
Okay, all right, very good. All the schools did a great job today with the shout outs. Thank you very much. I do want to remind each and every school to make sure to have your microphones muted until we call upon you, because we like to eliminate any interruptions throughout the broadcast. And even after you ask your question, if you can go ahead and mute your microphone immediately after that, just so we can eliminate, again, any of that background noise which would cause interruptions throughout the program. So we appreciate your assistance with that. But now on to, obviously, the star of the show, our Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Chris Hamburger, and I would like to share with you a little information about his on-the-field and off-the-field accomplishments. On the field, he was selected in the 18th round. So think about that. A lot of people think to be in the Hall of Fame, it's a first or second round selection. He was selected in the 18th round, 245th player overall by Washington in 1965. He was an integral part of the dominant Redskins teams of the 1970s. He was selected first team All-NFL 4 times in 5 season span from 1972 to 1976. He was named All-Eastern Conference in 1968 and 69. He was All-NFC 6 times in 7 seasons from 1970 through 1976. He was voted to 9 Pro Bowls, registered 9 career interceptions, 3 career fumble recoveries for touchdown, and at that time of his retirement, that was an NFL record. And he was born in Fort Bragg in North Carolina. So that's a little bit about his on the field, but let's look at some of the things that he's accomplished off the field. And first and foremost, a good deal of his after career was spent as owner and operator of Chris Hamburger Ford, Maryland, where he spent about 12 years with that dealership. He was also involved with farming. He was a general manager at Ford and Kubota Tractor. On the side, he had a roofing and siding company that he did, and he also had his real estate license in the state of Maryland, Washington D.C., and Virginia. So you can kind of see he's kind of a jack of all trades and has been involved in a lot, and a lot of ownership and entrepreneurship positions that he has had with those companies. He also served with the USO tours the NFL did when the NFL players went over to visit troops in Vietnam. And he was involved with a number of charities that he doesn't even, how do I put this, that doesn't come off the wrong way, charities that he doesn't like to bring up the names because he doesn't want to glorify what he was doing. One of the things that he does is he kind of walks the walk and doesn't, walks the walk and doesn't really talk the talk. So he lives by action and not by words. So it's not really a big deal to bring up who he's worked with. He just works with those folks because he doesn't like the limelight. And I think you'll hear that in his remarks and responses, as we did in the earlier session with students as well. So with that being said, what I would like to do is flip over the video here so you guys can see. We're going to show you a quick highlight film of Mr. Hamburger.
2011 Hall of Fame inductee Chris Hanbuger was best known as a ferocious tackler and leader of the late 60s and 70s Washington Redskins defense. He was selected first-team All-Pro at linebacker 4 times in a 5-season span from 1972 through 1976 and earned Pro Bowl honors 9 times in his 14-year career. Hanbuger is the 22nd Washington Redskin to be elected to the Hall of Fame.
And if all the schools for a second can unmute your microphones and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Chris Hamburger. Once again, all the schools, to go ahead and mute your microphones at your sites until we call upon you. And Mr. Hamburger, if you have any opening remarks you would like to share, go ahead with those.
Well, I just want to thank all the students for participating in this. And I have to tell them that you guys at the Hall of Fame got me, because I thought we were only doing one session, which we did earlier. And now we just came off about a 30-minute break, and now we're doing another one, which I didn't know we were going to do, but that's all right. But again, thank you all for participating in this, and I hope it's a lot of fun for all of you. I'm an Army brat. I grew up in a very strict military family. My dad was career Army. He was a Army engineers, and he was also an Army aviation pilot in both qualified and fixed wing and rotary craft. Moved around a lot. Of course, I was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Went to school at the only institute of higher learning in the United States, the University of North Carolina. That's where I went to college. But we traveled a lot, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, Rapid City, South Dakota. We were stationed at Fort Belvoir a couple of times. I was stationed there at Fort Belvoir myself. I went in the Army right out of high school before I went to college. We were stationed in Panama, down in Fort Monroe, Virginia. I could just keep going. So we were moving all the time, but I had a very strict life where we had to come to the table, especially in the evening meal, you had to present your hands to make sure they were clean. Before you sat down, you had to sit up at the table. You had to bring your food to your mouth. You couldn't bend down to eat. Cut one piece of meat off at a time. Very strict. Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. That's the way I was brought up, and it's kind of the way that I've raised my kids. I have 3 children and 7 grandkids, and I've got 2 daughters and a son. And, of course, in my family, I've got a brother and 2 sisters. They're all younger than I am. I'm an old man. I'm pushing 71 right now, so, you know, all these young folks that are tuned into this, they weren't even born when I was running around on the football field probably. But it's been a great life. I've enjoyed it, and I'm more than happy to participate with all of you today and hope we can have some fun.
Thank you, Mr. Hamburger, for your opening remarks. Just to let you know, we have 7 more of these to do right after this, okay?
You better get your checkbook out.
We could do them all day. We could do them all day.
Okay.
Thank you. See, one of his character traits is flexibility. So he's very flexible with his schedule right now. So thank you.
I didn't read that in here. No, we're good to go.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go in the order. I'll give you guys the order here. We're going to go Darlington, Emmanuel, Orange, Arvada, and then Southside. We'll go in that order. Each school will have 1 question that they can ask. We've seen the questions. You know, you've submitted them to me. The great questions. We're really excited about hearing some of these questions. So we'll go in that order. And just a reminder that we will make sure to mute your microphones right after you ask that question. And again, I just encourage you out of those questions to ask those thought-provoking questions. You know, again, this is one of the greatest football players ever. Any of the outside linebackers that you think are great that are in the NFL today, you know, they hope to be in Mr. Hamburger's shoes someday and be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So you're talking to one of the greatest ever. So with that being said, what we're going to do, we're going to start the program off actually with the 4 students that you guys can see on camera with surrounding Mr. Hamburger there. If you guys have an opening question, go ahead with that.
My name is Jacob, and I would like to ask, what did you do to withstand against peer pressure?
Well, I learned early in life that it's very easy to go along with the crowd or just a few folks that are involved in something that they shouldn't be involved with, and I got in trouble. I got in a lot of trouble when I was growing up, and I spent some time, I don't want to say behind bars, but I was in a stockade as a kid, and I spent over about a week and a half. They didn't lock the cell door. Heck, I was only about, that was back in 51, so I was about 10 years old at that point. But I had to eat the prisoners' food and clean up the cells and all that and sleep in the cell at night because of something that I did that I shouldn't have done. But I think it's very easy to go with the crowd, even though you know that what they're doing is wrong. And I think you have to learn right off the bat that you've got to do the right thing. And I've always emphasized common sense is one of the driving factors. It has to be in everybody's lives. And it's something we all have. You just have to use it. And it's nothing, all it is, right, wrong, common sense. And always do what's right. It's that simple. So you learn, you get in some trouble. It's going to happen. We all do. It's just like driving. You know, I'm assuming that all of you watching and sitting in on this are have your driver's license now, or pretty close to having it, hey, it's easy to get in that machine and see how fast it goes, even though the speed limit might say 60 or 65 or whatever. And it's common sense. That sign says 60. You don't go past 60. You can go a few miles an hour over, but that's basically what I'm talking about. Just utilizing common sense and not letting peer pressure get you to do something that you shouldn't do. And you may have other kids in the car with you, and they're saying, oh, come on, let's see how fast we can go. Well, that's when you stop, kick them out, and you go, you go on your own.
Thank you. Thank you, Darlington, for the first question. And we're going to go to California to Emmanuel High School. If you guys have your question, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Sam, and I want to ask, how do you keep your integrity on the football field?
Well, I tell you what, if the players on the other team had pockets in their pants and carried their wallets, I'd probably try to steal them. No, I'm kidding with you. Your integrity, I think, is just playing the game as hard as you can and doing it that way all the time. And you want to have the respect of your opponent, but you don't want to, you want that to be a genuine, real respect. You don't want to be known as a dirty player or anything like that. As long as you play the game the way it's supposed to be played, which is hard and full bore, I mean, people are going to get hurt, but you don't intentionally try to hurt somebody out there. That's not the way you play. But injuries are going to happen. And I can tell you right now, back when I played, we had some guys, and I won't mention names, that were known as kind of dirty players. And they don't last long. They just won't be in the game that long. And your teammates and the other team's teammates, they kind of weed those kind of people out of the game. Or they sit them down and talk to them and say, hey, you got to change your ways. But your integrity is very important, not only in playing ball, but in life. And you just got to go out and in the business world or in sports and just do the very best that you can do and do it all the time. And your integrity develops from that.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for the question. And let's go to the great state here in Ohio, and let's go to Orange High School. Go ahead.
From Orange High School, my name's Karan Bafna. We'd like to ask you, what are some examples of times that you've had to persevere through adversity?
That's a good question, and I know on the first session that we did today, the thing that I had the most trouble with, and I'm very thankful it only happened once in my career, as far as adversity. I got injured. I messed my knee up, and I couldn't play for quite a few weeks. And when you're in that position where you can't play, you go to team meetings, those type of things. You go to the games, but you're just on the sideline. You don't really feel like you're part of the club. And that was the hardest thing. I got kind of down because of that. And so the thing that I guess that I had to deal with was having that feeling, but it inspired me to try to rehabilitate my knee faster so I could get back on the field. And that was probably as far as adversity goes, that was the hardest thing for me to deal with, especially from a mental standpoint.
Thank you, Orange, and let's go to Wyoming. Arvada Claremont, go ahead.
How did playing football help you build character?
Oh, gosh. I'd like to think that I had a lot of character when I started playing football. But I think when you're playing, you want to gain the respect of the people around you. So you've got to live your life properly. You've got to show respect to the men that are out there. And you also have to show a lot of respect for the people you're playing against. And you've heard the term solid citizen or whatever. I know when I played for Coach Allen, I got sick and tired of hearing that word, those two words. He's a solid citizen. And I think you just try to do everything you possibly can the right way and do it that way all the time. And it's just like in life. No matter what you do, I don't care whether it's writing an essay or if you're preparing for a test or whatever it is, you want to try to have in your mind the concept that no matter what you do, you're going to try to do it better than anybody else can possibly do it. And I think that's how all that develops. If you have that attitude and you strive for that all the time, I think you're going to find that you'll come out on top in everything that you do.
And thank you, Claremont. Let's go to Elmira, New York, South Side. If you have a question, go ahead.
Hi, how important do you feel accountability is on and off the field?
How important? What? Accountability?
How important do you feel accountability is on and off the field?
Oh, gosh, it's very important. I think a lot, and times have changed. I know when I played, and I'm kind of a low-key person. I mean, I looked at professional football as a job, period. To me, it wasn't a sport. That's how I made a living. And I wanted to be totally prepared all the time, and I expected the same from my teammates, that they would, and so the accountability applies to everybody that's on the team. I mean, you don't want to be out there with some guy that hadn't prepared himself or that isn't going about the game as hard as they can possibly go, because it's not an easy game to play. It's a simple game, but it's not that easy. Same thing in the business world. If I'm going into a meeting, I'm going to be totally prepared, and I want whoever I'm going into that meeting with from accountability standpoint, I want them totally prepared also, because I don't want somebody asking them or me a question that I can't answer. But in the same token, if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to do but one thing. I don't know, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you. I'm not going to make up some off-the-wall thing and try to sneak my way through it. And I think too many people try to do that. But basically, that's the way I look at accountability.
Thank you, Southside. And we'll go back to the young men that are joined there with Mr. Hamburger. If you got another question, go ahead.
My name is Davion Williams, and I want to ask, what character qualities do you believe it takes to be a Hall of Fame player?
What character qualities to be a Hall of Famer? I wish I knew the answer. I don't really know the answer to that. It's a good question. Why am I in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. I know I'm thrilled to be there. And I've always said that men that played before I did, men that I played with and against, and there's men playing now, they're never going to get nominated, let alone elected into the Hall of Fame. So I just consider myself very fortunate that the folks that do all this election and nomination and election process happened to grab hold of my name, and I got in. Why, I really don't know, because I don't feel like I did anything out there in my 14-year career that other players haven't done. There's so many players that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and unfortunately, they're just not going to make it. It's just the way it is. I don't agree with the system, but I can't change it. It is what it is, and I'm just very fortunate and very thankful for it. I really am.
And Mr. Hamburger, going along with that, the same thing we kind of asked at the last session is that, not everyone goes on to a Hall of Fame career. Not everyone wins a Super Bowl. Not everyone gets an A on the test. Not every program that you do, through our educational programs, not every program goes the right way, whether it's technology or whatever. What do you have to say to those people? Because as you said, there have been all those men that have come before you and after you that worked probably just as hard as you did to be the best they can be, but they didn't get that accolade of being a Hall of Fame player. What do you have to say for those students that in that regard?
Well, you never stop. I mean, as a football player, professional football player, I never gave the Hall of Fame any thought. I never even considered it. That was the least of what I was thinking about playing. For each game, I just wanted to win each game. That was the most important thing to me at the time. Never the Hall of Fame. And I'm not going to mention names, but I had one player who's in the Hall of Fame that I played with that told me if I wanted to get into the Hall of Fame, I needed to go to the Hall of Fame ceremonies and be seen and heard. And I said, well, you're crazy. That's not me. I'm not going to do it. I've never been a politician and never will be. And I never worry about what I'm saying or who I'm saying it to or, who I'm saying it about. I'm going to speak my mind and I'll deal with the consequences. But I'm not going to politic for anything. And with that in mind, the Hall of Fame process, nomination and election, I don't know what can be done to make it any better than it is. It is what it is. And I'm just fortunate that my name popped up and enough folks that are involved in that nomination and election process made the decision to put me in. And I'm deeply honored by it. But I also feel somewhat guilty only because, like I said, there's so many men that deserve this honor, probably more than I do, or as much as I do, that aren't going to get there. So it's just something that, I'm totally thrilled. I'm asked the question, what was my biggest thrill in football? Well, my answer up until the Hall of Fame election was the first Pro Bowl that I played in, because back then, the other players on the teams you played against are the ones that put you into the Hall of Fame. And to me, that was the ultimate honor, that they felt that I was a good enough player to go to and be in a Pro Bowl. That was ultimate to me. And now my greatest honor is being in the Hall of Fame.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, Mr. Hamburger. Let's go ahead and go to Manual High School in Reedley, California.
Hi, my name is Marcus Gaddy, and I wanted to know if you sustained any injuries while in the NFL, and if so, how do they affect your everyday life?
Well, if you talk to my wife and my kids, they'll tell you that I can't hear, which I can't. I don't have very good hearing. I don't wear a hearing aid. I don't attribute that to football, though. I had a very serious operation just a few weeks after I was born that affected my hearing all my life. And at one point, I'll tell you a funny story. I was in the Army right out of high school, and I was trying to go to West Point. And I had to take a hearing test. And back then, you sat across from some guy, and there was a glass partition, and he operated the machine, and you had this headset on, and you were supposed to signal him when you could hear different sounds. Well, I'm sitting in there, and I can't hear anything. And so I flunked the test, but I paid attention to what he was doing. And I noticed that when he would turn the dial, he would look to me to see if I was going to raise a hand saying I could hear. So the next time I took the test, I just watched his hand. And when it moved, my hand went up. I couldn't hear anything. But I passed the test. But no, I don't have any serious injuries right now. I got some sciatic nerve problems going down both legs that I can't jog anymore. I walk every day and do exercises. First thing in the morning, I get up and go walk 5 miles or so. I don't time myself. I just do it. I do a lot of stretching and crunches and push-ups and things like that every day. My family will tell you that I can't remember things, which is true, but I don't have dementia, so I'm fortunate. I do know some players that are in pretty bad shape because of dementia right now. But overall, I'm very thankful for the health that I do have. Some of the players that I played against and with, I mean, some of the guys are in dire straits. They have to use canes, walkers, things like that. But I was very fortunate when I played. And probably the most serious injury was the knee injury that I had that kept me out for a number of weeks. But other than that, I was very fortunate when I played.
And thank you, Emmanuel there. Let's go to Orange High School.
Hi, my name is Chris Wilson. Can you explain the importance of what it means to be a football team and offer some suggestions on how to better or build our team?
I'm sorry, but could you repeat the question, please?
Can you explain the importance of what...
It's not because I can't...
Can you explain...
It's not because I can't hear. It's because it came across garbled.
Can you explain the importance of what it means to be a football team and offer some suggestions on how to better or build our team?
Well, to be a football team, I think it's very important that that the men that are on the team have total respect for each other, have respect for the coaching staff. You may not always agree with what the coaches, but you've got to respect what they're asking you to do, and you've got to respect them as the leaders. And everybody has to become a leader on the team. Everybody has to prepare, and everybody has to be happy for the other person's success. You can't go out there and expect and think only of yourself. It's just not going to have. You're not going to have the cohesiveness that you would have on a team if you operate that way. And everybody has to be totally prepared. And if you got guys that aren't putting everything they have into it, you just sit them down and talk to them. And if that doesn't work, you get rid of them and get somebody else. And it makes no difference how big or small, strong, fast you are or anything else in any sport. I mean, it's whoever can get the job done the best. That's what they're the people that are going to play. I mean, you could give me 500 people, and I got to make up a football team, and if I end up with, say, 40 guys that none of them weigh over 200 pounds, but they're going to leave everything they've got on that field, they're the ones that I'm going to have playing. So I think that's what it amounts to as far as having team success.
Thank you, Orange. And let's go to Arvada Claremont, Wyoming.
What are some situations or events that took place in your life that you would say had a significant impact on your character?
Excuse me. I think probably the incident in South Dakota when I had to spend, I was only about 10 years old, and I had to spend some time in the military stockade with two other young men my age for something that we did wrong. And that had a big influence on me about doing the right thing all the time, and it kind of ingrained in me the use of common sense. The other thing that happened, and I didn't feel it was right, but I had somebody slam into me in downtown D.C. when I was in the military, and I'm thankful it was on the weekend, and I apologized right away to him, and the guy picked a fight with me, and he started to take his coat off in order to, I guess he felt like he could fight better if he didn't have his coat on. Well, he got one arm out, and the next thing he knew, he was out cold on the sidewalk, and the next thing I knew, I had two police officers grabbing hold of me, and that was a rude awakening. So, but I think the military background that I grew up under, the strictness, the politeness, the respect, having respect for other people, and how to judge other people. You know, you judge people not by the way they dress, not how they look. You judge by what's inside of them. That's the important thing. And those kind of things that I learned in life along the way, I think is what developed my character and my way of life.
So don't ever pick a fight with Mr. Hamburger. The students that are gathered around there, don't pick a fight with them. Let's go to Southside.
Did you ever take on a leadership role as a youth? If so, what was it?
I never took on a leadership role that I can remember. I know that I would just tell you that as a young person, from about the age of about 9 or 10 on up until I got out of high school, I was not a good high school student because I didn't apply myself. I got in a lot of trouble, and I paid the price. I learned from my mistakes. And I think when I went in the Army right out of high school, and one of the reasons I did that is because I was lucky to graduate from high school. I knew I wasn't ready for college, especially mentally. Physically, I knew I could do it. But I realized that I needed to grow up more. I went in the military, and I never forget, I was in basic training and just got assigned to a basic training company. And I was selected to be a platoon leader. Why? I don't know. I don't have any idea. But I'm thankful that it occurred, because right away I had to accept some leadership responsibility, major leadership responsibility. And the same thing basically occurred when I went into advanced infantry training, that I had to be in charge of a number of people. And that's kind of, I mean, I had to learn through experience to develop leadership skills. But it's not that difficult to pick up those type of things and run with it.
Okay, let's go ahead, and I think that was Southside, right? I lost track on my. Was that Southside that just asked the question?
Yeah.
Yes, so. Just asked. Okay, thank you. Let's go back to the students there in Darlington.
Amen.
My name is Shaq Johnson. I want to know, what do you think about the new rules in the NFL today concerning hard hits? Do you think that most illegal hits are a character issue?
Well, that's a good question. I'm sure that all of you keep up with sports probably and professional football more than I do at this point in my life, but and I can only speak from a defensive standpoint. The name of the game from a defensive standpoint is to hit the other guy as hard as you can, whenever you can. And if he's got to go out of the game, hopefully that's an advantage, because the guy that's coming in is not as good as the guy that you're putting on the sidelines. But you don't go out there with the intention of trying to injure somebody. It's going to happen. Most injuries are kind of freakish, I think, in a lot of ways. I know I had my nose busted up a couple of times, and it was not because of the other team. It's because of my own players piling on and injuring me. Same thing when I messed up my knee and had to sit out some games. It was caused by one of my own players on the same team. So, but I think that I don't think it's really a character issue. I mean, it's a rough game, and the name of the game is to, tackle somebody from a defensive standpoint. Same thing offensively. You want to block somebody, you want to block them as best you can. But certainly defensive players have a much greater chance to deliver a blow to somebody. It's just like when they changed the rules about, I used to close what they call clothesline tackle a lot of players. It worked for me, and that's why I did it. And, of course, then they started coming out with rules to protect the quarterback. Then you couldn't clothesline. And, to me, and I even made the statement, they're just making it into like a sissy game. And I had a player, this recent discussions about the bounty that supposedly went on with the New Orleans Saints and the defensive coach there. I know in my career, I never played on a team, nor did I ever have a coach that ever talked about a bounty of any kind. I was never offered, nor did I ever receive any money for hitting somebody out there on the field. There's no place for that in professional sports of any kind. We're all out there to provide entertainment for folks. Our ultimate goal is to go and win a Super Bowl. Just about every player out there has a family and children. And the last thing you want to do is intentionally try to injure somebody and deprive them or their families from your being able to do that. So if it did go on, I hope the punishment is severe that comes down from the commissioner. And I think it would be totally justified if that type of thing went on. Yeah, we had little crazy things that went on when I played. For example, one of our defensive players each week, if we won a game, would present what was called the Barbed Wire Bandit Award. It was a piece of rusted barbed wire stuck in an old chunk of log, and that was presented to one of the defensive players that had a great game. But it wasn't awarded on the basis of knocking somebody out of a game. It was just your overall performance. So, I just hope that we get through this nonsense about the bounty and it's all cleaned up and we can move forward in professional football.
Thank you. Great question there, Darlington. Let's go to Emmanuel in California.
Hi, my name's Carter, and I'd like to ask how you were one of the last picks in the draft to becoming a Hall of Fame player.
Well, I've always said that, and I forget what number I was picked at. I know I was an 18th round pick out of 20, I think, that the clubs had then.
Number 245.
245 out of 20 rounds, I think they had back then, something like that. I never expected to be drafted. Of course, I played at the University of North Carolina in college. I started out as playing freshman football. I was a tight end, and I think they discovered very quickly that I couldn't catch the ball. So I went and played defense, and after that, my sophomore year, I played just defensive end. Now, back then in college, you played both ways except for two players could be substituted for a change in ball possession. And we had an All-American receiver who would come off the field because he couldn't play defense. And I would go in and play defensive end for him. So after spring practice, after my sophomore year, one of the coaches grabbed me and said they were going to make me an offensive center. And I had to learn in the summer how to snap the ball for extra points and punts, which I'd never done before. And so I learned how to do that. My junior and senior year, I played as an offensive center, and then when the ball flipped over on defense, I became a linebacker. I think when I got drafted, they were just running out of people and throwing darts at a board, and my name got hit, and the Redskins ended up with me. I can't think of it occurring any other way. But like I say, there's a lot of luck. I really consider myself lucky in life. I always look and think that had I stayed in the military, made a career like my father, my grandfather, I had uncles that had military careers, lifelong careers. With what's transpired in my lifetime from a military standpoint, I've always wondered what would have happened to me. But I was very fortunate to be drafted. It was just luck. That's all I can say. I don't think there was anything else that had a bearing on it.
But there's something to be said to that, though, students. When opportunity comes up, whether it's being drafted in the NFL, whether it's a promotion in a job, whether it's something else that comes up in your life, when those opportunities arise, though, you need to be prepared that when those opportunities do arise, if they do, if you are lucky enough to get those opportunities, being prepared. And Mr. Hamburger was prepared that when that opportunity came up, that he could take the reins and go with it. I think two great examples of that in the NFL right now are two quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, who followed Brett Favre, followed one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in NFL history, and someone that's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday, I'm sure. But he had to wait his turn, and there was doubts of whether he would play or not. But as soon as Brett Favre took off, and boy, Aaron Rodgers took that and ran with it. He was prepared and ready to go when that happened. Another great example is Tim Tebow in Denver. Is someone who wasn't sure if he was going to get to play, but when the opportunity came, he was prepared and he was ready. So it is luck in many cases, as Mr. Hamburger said, but in case that luck does come up or that opportunity does arise in life, you need to be prepared for it too, and be ready for those things to take place, even if you're not sure if you'll be able to do it or not. So let's thank you, Emmanuel. Let's go to Orange High School.
I'm Dominic Vitelli, and we would like to know, how do you control your attitude when everything around you is compelling you to have a bad attitude or even quit?
Well, I can tell you right now, I've never quit anything in my life, and I never will. And I've never let an attitude on my part be detrimental to anything. I'm very easygoing. It doesn't take, you'd have to smack me around an awful lot to get me upset to where I would have a bad attitude about anything. But if I get that way, look out. You better get out of the room. And I always said in business that, I don't fire people. People fire themselves. I've never been one for a lot of rules in business. I know when I had my dealership, I didn't have a lot of rules, but I expected everybody to follow those. And if they didn't, they were gone. And I expected everybody to try to be the best like I was trying, to be the best that I could be all the time. That's what I wanted them to do. And I wanted that out of everybody. Just from a guy that would move cars on the lot. In fact, I used to stop employees, and I'd say, you just walked past a piece of trash on the lot. Why didn't you stop and pick it up? And you can't believe the kind of answers that I would get. I'd even go out there and pick up trash myself, just to set an example. And if you're going to be a leader, you can't expect people to do things unless you're going to do them yourself. So you lead by example, and to me, life is so simple. It's just mind-boggling to me why we make it so difficult when it's just the easiest thing in the world to try to be your best all the time, utilize common sense, and just keep a positive attitude about things. Don't let a setback pull you down. Evaluate things you do well, evaluate things you did bad. And you'll find very quickly that life's easy. It really is.
Thank you, Orange. And let's go to Arvada Claremont. Wyoming.
What advice can you give us about how to develop our character?
Well, again, character. I mean, right now, let me just ask you a question, and you don't have to answer me. When you got up this morning, did you make your bed? You did?
Yeah.
All of you did, huh? Nobody's
I didn't.
Nobody's telling me a little fib.
Raise your hand if you didn't
Huh?
make your bed.
I didn't.
I don't think so. It's my bed.
Well, see, that's part of good character, is that you have a routine and you try to follow it each and every day. It's about doing everything that's right. I've got my oldest grandson is staying with me right now for a while, and bless his heart, he's got Crohn's disease, and he has just overcome a very serious series of operations, and he's got a room upstairs in the house all to himself. And I walked up there the other day, and I tell you what, it looked like a hurricane had gone through there. And I told him, I said, I can't put up with this. You're going to have to get a little direction in your life about keeping this room picked up and neat. But that's what I'm talking about. You know, you get up in the morning, and if you're supposed to make the bed, you make the bed. If you're supposed to take the trash out, you take the trash out. And the other thing is, when you're doing it, you do it better than anybody else can do it. Better than your brother or your sister, or your mom or your dad or whatever. And that's what develops character.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you, Emmanuel. Let's go to, Arvada. Let's go to Southside.
How do you feel as an adult that you are continuing to shape your character?
Oh gosh, as an adult, I'm an old man. I'm past the adult stage. At this point, I don't worry too much about my character. I just like I think I told you guys and girls, I'm pushing 71. I'm no spring chicken. I get around pretty good. But I don't worry about my character anymore. I think I've established my character. I look back and I just think of how blessed I've been and all the things that I've done in life and the things that I've learned in life. And I think everything, when you start putting what I've said to you together, and I'm sure there's people that are more qualified to tell you how you develop character than I am, but when you experience things in life, I think all those things go to develop your character. And it's not that you never stop learning. I mean, I still learn things every day, but I'm not in a position now to where I'm in the business world anymore, things like that, to where I can expand upon what character I have. And I think you just over time develop good character by experiencing things in life, and then you just keep running with it and keep learning. And then you reach a point like me where you think you're about ready to go into an old retirement home or something. But I'm not quite ready for that.
Thank you, Southside. And we've got time. I've got 12:25. We got time for a couple more questions. So let's maybe hit Darlington and Emmanuel. Go ahead with the students there in Darlington.
Did you ever take a leadership role as a youth?
Did I ever take a leadership role as a youth? Well, at one point I did. It was the wrong role. I was going to be a gang leader. And then I realized that I didn't want to be a gang leader. Of course, I wasn't that old at the time, but I do recall that incident. And the other guys were kind of wanting me to be in charge of the gang. And that's one of those times where common sense took over and I did the right thing. I didn't become a gang leader, nor did I associate with those people anymore. So I think you just have to make the right choices. That's all. And it's so easy in life to be steered the wrong way. It really is, and you just have to tough it out. It may mean getting new friends, new people to associate with, everything. I can honestly say that I have never done drugs. I don't drink. Yeah, I've did some drinking when I was young, and I don't drink to this day. I may drink a little bit of an alcoholic beverage. I mean, maybe a couple ounces. I bet I haven't even had 2 ounces of some kind of alcohol in the last 10 years. But that's me. I don't judge other people by what they do as far as drinking. I don't want to be around a drunk any more than most other people don't. But when I was younger, yeah, we used to sneak out and have people, supply us with alcohol and things like that. I did things like that, but I have never taken any drugs of any kind in my lifetime, nor would I. My children, my son and 2 daughters, they have never done anything like that. And I attribute that to the way I brought them up, the way I was brought up. But I don't have anything against if you become an adult doing those kind of things. If you're going to do them, I'm not going to judge you by it. I'm not going to associate with you if you're into drugs. That's for sure. I don't want anything to do with it. So it's a question of making good choices.
There's something to be said along that too. He talked about people he surrounded himself with and how he got rid of those people shortly thereafter. We are going to encounter so many people in our life, and this is something that we share with the last group, and something that we seem to bring up every session with all of our Hall of Famers that we've done this over the past year and a half, 2 years that we've done this program, is, to be the best, you need to surround yourselves with the best, and not those that are going to bring you down, but those that are going to help you progress to your goals. There's some people in our lives that we cannot really control because they are in our lives. Could be our own parents. That might be a negative thing in our life. But there are a lot of folks that you have control of who you can put in your life, like your friends, like your local pastor or local scout leader or whoever, whatever groups, your coaches, your teachers. There are so many good influences that you have the choice to include in your life to help you guys move forward in your life and to make those good decisions. So, there's a lot of good positive influences that you guys can bring into your life. And you'll find with our Hall of Famers, while they've had their so-called knuckleheaded moments in their lives, and I think we've all had them, you'll find that they have surrounded themselves with the best, and that's how they became the best as well, as the people that would challenge them to continue to move forward. Let's go with the last question of the program. Let's go to California. Let's go with the Reedley. Emmanuel?
Looking at players like Terrell Owens, Chad Ochocinco, and Ray Lewis, how do you feel their character impacts the NFL?
Well, I'm old-fashioned, and I talked to a lot of the players that I played with and against that, and I think the thing that we find upsetting is the showboating that goes on from players like that. Not so much Ray Lewis. It's so much about me rather than the team is what I'm trying to say. If I was a coach and I had a chance to go into coaching, but the reason I didn't is because I don't think I could put up with the players. The players that played for me would probably be broke because I'd fine them if they unbelievable amounts of money for doing some of the things that some of these players do out there on the field. And this showboating is ridiculous. I mean, you'll see a guy make a tackle. First tackle he's made, it's in the fourth quarter. First tackle he's made all game. His team's behind by 20 points, and he's going to get up and celebrate. I mean, that's ridiculous. And you guys have probably read and heard about some of these guys doing this celebration and actually injuring themselves. I mean, the Redskins had a quarterback that goes and bangs his head against the wall after scoring a touchdown and about knocks himself out. It's ridiculous. And so you go out there, you play the game, and you play it as hard as you can, but you leave all that showboating. Do that after the game. Don't do it during the game. But I can just tell you that most of the older players, like myself, we just think it's out of place. But it's become pro football is such big business, and I just think that they need the commissioner needs to crack down on it harder than they have, of limiting all that stuff. I mean, I think it's just absolutely absurd. I mean, to have a guy score a touchdown and then one of the names you mentioned, I think, grabbed a cell phone. He's going to make a phone call to somebody or something. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I'd fine a guy $200,000 if he did that, minimum, if I could get away with it.
And you got inducted this year, enshrined with a couple. I won't want to say showboaters, but some of you will know the name Deion Sanders. Prime time, you see him on TV, and other folks. Do you have any stories you'd like to share about? I know you and Deion ended up establishing kind of a little dynamic relationship because you're kind of, I don't want to say opposite personalities, but any stories you'd like to share that we can actually share to students?
Well, you know, the funny thing, when Deion, I mean, he's a great guy, but no, yeah. I would, if he played for me, I'd have fined him when he starts doing all that fancy strutting 20 yards before he goes into the end zone. Just run it in the end zone. That's all you got to do. But I have to tell you, when he said that he had found a new friend in myself, and everybody asked me about that afterwards, and I said, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I said, I'm thrilled to be his new friend, and I said, in fact, I invited him to come for a sleepover, but I've never heard from him since. But I tell you, he's a great guy. I called him when he got inducted recently into the College Hall of Fame, and it was about 5 days later, I'm sitting at home, and I get a call from him returning the thank you call, which I really appreciated. It was awful nice on it. He's just been so busy with everything. But he's a great guy. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with him. And I know when we were up there at the Hall of Fame, they have a luncheon, and it's called the Round Table Luncheon. And the moderator asked the question. The question was, what is the one thing that you'll remember the most from the Hall of Fame? And he said, Chris, why don't you answer first? And I said, well, I'll tell you what. The thing that I'll remember most is being up here with these 4 guys who were my idols when I was a youngster. Now, the gist of it is I'm way older than they are, but I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun teasing them.
Well, the stories go that round table, out of all the names that were there, Marshall Falk and Shannon Sharp and Deion Sanders, that Chris Hamburger had the crowd laughing the most and entertained the crowd the most. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. It's wrapped up with other stuff here, but I heard you stole the show, so to speak, for that. So that was I was hoping to bring up one of those stories there. So, are there any closing remarks that you'd like to share with these students, Mr. Hamburger?
Well, what I'd like to say to you is that life's full of ups and downs, and don't let anything get you down. I mean, you're going to have boyfriend, girlfriend problems. You're going to have family problems, and you just can't let those things get you down. You just got to overcome them. You're going to have problems in school, outside of school, everything, and you just can't let those type of things, anything really, deter you from getting a good education. And I would tell all of you, education is so important. We've had successful people that never went to high school. We've got some that barely got out of high school. You don't have to go to college to be successful, but I would say in today's world, you need that high school diploma. You got to have it. And I hope that each and every one of you could go on and go to college. Guys and girls, I would tell you, don't count on a professional sport career. If it happens, it happens. But when you're playing sports in high school, the important thing is the education. And if you can play a sport and excel in your education, that's great. But if you're having trouble keeping that education going by playing a sport, I would tell you to get out of the sport and just concentrate on your education. And stay out of trouble. Just make good, positive, right decisions. Life's too simple to make it complicated. It's a mess as it is with everything going on in the world today.
And schools, if you guys can all unmute your microphones for a second here and join me in giving a warm round of applause saying thank you to Pro Football Hall of Fame. Mr. Hamburger, just on behalf of the Hall of Fame, let me say thank you for taking a few hours out of your day to share your message with these students. I want to say thank you to all these students tuning in, all the teachers, definitely Darlington County School District for making the sacrifices and arrangements on your end to host Mr. Hamburger, E-Tech Ohio. It really does take a team effort to put something like this together, and without you guys it wouldn't have been possible. So thank you very much, and this concludes our program. Take care. Thank you, Chris. Take care, Chris.